Hello, everyone. You are someone, and I am someone else, and today we're gonna review this book. This is an absolutely fantastic book. Don't Count on It by John C. Bogle. This was the last of his main trilogy. His trilogy was The Battle for the Soul of Capitalism, Enough, which is his second book. My grandmother gave me this book. It's a good book. And, of course, the last and final book of the trilogy, Don't Count on It. Now, what is this trilogy about? It's mainly how to organize society, economically anyway. He talks a lot about capitalism. He talks a lot about board of directors, managers capitalism versus non-managers capitalism, mostly in the first book. Second book, he talks about the morality side of the economy on the second book. And the third book, he sort of ties everything together because the second book was actually supposed to be a chapter of the book of Don't Count on It, but it got so big, he made a little small book called Enough, which, by the way, has 270 small pages. It's way smaller. Like, if you look, it's like way smaller in terms of just how small it is. So, but honestly, though, I recommend Don't Count on It. It does tie both books together. Honestly, nothing beats getting the whole trilogy. But if you're gonna get, if you're gonna get an economics book from John Bogle, I would recommend The Battle for the Soul of Capitalism. He was actually so controversial, he wasn't able to publish it from the original publisher he uses now. Yale had to publish it instead of Whitney because it wasn't an investment book. So every time he's published economics books, most of the time he's talking about investing. However, with the Battle of the Soul of Capitalism, he wasn't talking that much about investing. He was just talking about more how management should work. So in that case, like, he had to use a different publisher because it wasn't so investment related. But like, again, like, the trilogy, regardless of the two different publishers in the trilogy, which it makes it look weird because they all have three different sizes or whatever, the books, but they are a trilogy, in my personal opinion. You can't really have one book without reading the others. You really can't. So in my opinion, you get all three. But I was like, I didn't realize it was a trilogy until I started reading this last book because I actually started out with Enough, and then I sort of went in the middle of the trilogy. And then I read The Battle of the Soul of Capitalism, and in the book Don't Count on It, he says it should be the battle for something something. I forgot what he said. Some guy said you should change the name for the Battle of Soul Capitalism. I forgot what he said in this book. It was a review. Let me see if I can read it. I'll see if I can get to it. I don't know if I can. He talks a lot about index funds as well in his last book. Which I like that he does talk about index funds in this last book. I'm trying to find what he called it. It was so good though. This is the 7 rules for. It was one of these pages back here. But he called it something else. He called his book something else, which I thought was interesting. Anyway, yeah, it's fine. But I don't know. It was just I do love his paradox. I just read this I was like looking through the pages and I just saw a chapter I really liked in this book, The Paradox of Active Managed Funds, how they turn more and more like index funds over time. If you don't know anything about John Bogle, and I'm sure most of you who watch my channel do, John Bogle he's a fantastic person. He is a investment financial economist, basically. His first thing he ever wrote actually was in 1951 called The Economics of a Mutual Fund, and this how the business model works. And he says if you can cut the management expenses of a mutual fund, that you will inherently make more money for the investors. Not the fund manager, the investors, right? You can't serve two masters, like in chapter 18 of Common Sense on Mutual Funds, which I have on my bookshelf as well, which, by the way, it's just mainly his main books are investment economics, but this is his basic economics trilogy. And so I'm just going to talk mostly about Don't Count on It because it's just so good. I've read nearly everything. I've read nearly everything among the last part. And I have to say, this was absolutely fantastic. Let me see if I can read the chapters. Don't Count on It. So the first chapter is actually the name of the book is Don't Count on It. The Perils of Numeracy, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Chapter 2, The Relentless Rule of Humble Arithmetic. So he also uses that for his other book, Common Sense of Investing or something. Oh, The Small Book of Common Sense Investing. That's what it says. So this chapter right here is also a chapter in the little book that he also has. He's a little book. The Telltale Table. Uncanny ability to recognize the obvious. So I think in chapter 5 he talks about the too much cost fallacy in this book, and how in chapter 5 he says it's not about the efficient market hypothesis like the Chicagoans believe, Chicago economics, right? It's mainly about what the Bogle heads believe, the people who support John Bogle, and I do agree with him. It's a too much cost fallacy, not the efficient market hypothesis. However, I do think I relatively agree with the efficient market hypothesis. I generally think that if you're actively managing your stocks, that you're not, I would say you're 80% of the time not going to win. The market, there's always, again, I think this is because of the cost, really. I'd say I just think that John Bogle's theories is correct in general. That regardless, I mean, if you try to beat the market, even if you beat about 1%, the cost is 2%. So the cost of trading is way too high. That buying an index fund and holding it generally works out in the long run. But yeah, he talks a lot about this economically, but he talks mostly about morals in this one. He's more moral. I mean, all his economics books, he does talk about morality. I feel like the first 3 chapters of the trilogy, The Battle for the Soul of Capitalism, I'll get that one out. He does, I really love these 3 chapters. He's very analytical before he goes crazy and starts talking about, starts being aggressive. So that's what I love. He just scrutinizes. He puts numbers in. These managers made millions, and then everyone else lost all his money during the 2001 crisis, right? When the internet bubble crashed. And he just scrutinizes the first 3 chapters is just like, and then the whole trilogy is sort of like, okay, how do we morally fix this? So that's kind of what the trilogy is about. Although, again, like the last 2 books don't really talk about the .com crisis as much. This book, what I love about Don't Count on It, he does talk about the 2008 crisis. Because the other books were written like right before or after the 2008 crisis. So he does talk about, what are they called? I forgot what they're called. COEs, I think. Credit option equity swaps or something with like, I think they're called mortgages. When you file up a bunch of bonds, right? This is what John Bogle's talking about in his book, Don't Count on It. And you put like a bunch of B-rated bonds, because what they were doing was they were artificially making the credit ratings high, and then they were passing out the fund to be AAA, even though all the bonds in there were B or lower, because what they did was they supposedly diversified all the risk. But when you diversify into a bunch of crappy stocks, all you're going to get is a crappy return. So that's what happened. All these bankers had to get bailed out and all that stuff. He doesn't talk about the bailouts. I wish he did, but he just talks about the morality behind it. He does talk about you can't just diversify into one asset class and expect your return rate to be better than the market. You can't. So I did like that in that analysis. And again, Do I think that I probably think a little too much on, like, these are mainly speeches, college speeches. So he's trying to, when he most of his chapters are more inspirational, like don't give up, don't do this, don't do that. But it's kind of hard to explain this book without reading it. It really is, and it's a little complicated. It's got his old writing style before 2011, but it's got some of the newer style of writing. And I really like his newer style writing. That's why I love his newer books. I love The Little Book. The Little Book is one of his newer books, and this style of writing is so much easier to read. And this is probably his hardest book to read, Bogle on Mutual Funds. I have so many John Bogle books, but basically that's what makes this book so complicated. But what I love on this is all the parts of the book are listed on the front of the book. So it's just reflections, and it's similar with Basic Economics. Actually, I'll show you the Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell, how he lists all the chapters as well. It's very similar to Basic Economics, but it's a lot different in the fact that it's more finance based than Basic Economics, and he's more like morality based. He does talk about capitalism, but he doesn't really support capitalism like Thomas Sowell, right? And that's really his his backfiring. It's just like, yeah, you he doesn't bring up a good thesis like Thomas Sowell. Like Thomas Sowell will, what John Bogle will do is he will credit things. He does read a lot of books, and he does credit a lot. But he doesn't do the same. He doesn't have the same style of writing as Thomas Sowell. That's why in this book anyway, he's just his writing style, because he does speeches and then he puts it in a book. He writes these speeches, then does the speech in the college, then he puts it in a book. I don't really like those kind of books, and that's why I love the first two books more in the trilogy. It's because they're easier to understand. Enough is like, we have too much of this thing, but not enough of this. And so, like, that's what I love about Enough. It's such a short little book, and he's just, too much of this, not enough of that, right? Don't count on it. It's like, yeah, you don't count on the numbers. That's the first chapter, right? Don't listen to what the media is telling you. You look at all the flashy numbers and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, but you got to factor in taxes, you got to factor in fees. Media won't repeat that over your head. John Bogle will. And that's the thing, like John Bogle has a completely different message from, I would say, 90% of the investment community, which is all hyped up, especially on YouTube. So it's very interesting to hear his economic debate on really the economics of this, and the morality of these fund managers, really. And management in general in any company. In the first book, he talks about corporate governance. He does talk about it again in this book, but he doesn't bring it up as much. He doesn't talk about corporate democracy versus corporate dictatorship in this book. And that's something I really wish he would have brought up in this book. And, that's what I loved about the first book. It's like, it made it interesting, but he didn't expand it. He just talked about it for a little bit. But it was such an interesting ideal. I would love there would be like a John Bogle successor right about that. These books are, they're absolutely fantastic, but they are hard to explain. You have to really, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of, he does have a lot of charts and a lot of beautiful things in the books. That's why I recommend you get the physical copies, is because they have charts. This book, Enough, you don't need it because it's literally doesn't have any charts, but the other ones do. And so, like, that's the thing, is like, Enough is more of a moral thing. Like, we always have this much, and too much of this, but we still want more, but not enough of this, and we're not advocating for it more. That's what I love about Enough, right? But he doesn't have a lot of charts. He has some numbers on there, so maybe you should get it because there's numbers on it. But I don't know. I mean, I would say that if you're gonna get a bunch of John Bogle books, they're just basically economics books. These are the best economics books you can get. What I do notice, and this is something that really worries me a little bit, is that he's a big fan of John Mark Keynes. For those of you who don't know who John Mark Keynes is, here he is, right here, John Mark Keynes. I disagree a lot with John Markin Keynes. A lot. He is. I don't recommend reading his stuff, but you are going to be reading a lot of John Markin Keynes if you're going to get these John Bogle books. He does reference him a lot. And I ultimately agree with John Bogle on his thesis on John Markin Keynes, but he supports him way too much to the point where it's like, really? Really? Like, John Markin Keynes, he's not terrible. Like, he had this economic thesis saying more government spending leads to a better economy, having higher debt leads to a better economy. He was looking at one picture, like, during the Great Depression, but he didn't ever test another time frame, I don't think, of the economy. And I think if he would have lived longer, he would have changed his theories. And so that's why I really disagree with John Markin Keynes. I have this other book. My aunt has it now, so I don't have it with me, but my aunt was reading this book. It's really good. I wish I could do a review on it, but I don't have it in my hands. But I have the audio version of it, and this says Hayek versus no, I think it's Keynes versus Hayek or something, and it's really good. Talks about how if Keynes would have lived longer, Hayek probably would have been proven right. And I agree ultimately with Hayek's theory of employment over John Markin Keynes. Over the long term, I think John Markin Keynes, yes, he does boost employment with government spending, but he causes malinvestment in the wrong career choices. There is no demand for those jobs. It's artificial demand. It's created by government. Government of a central authority that can control people's lives and control people's income. And the more and more economy gets to be controlled by the central authority, the less freedom you have. So that's what Hayek argues is like. And he also says, well, that causes malinvestment. Now you're spending money on these things that don't actually produce anything. So it's like, and John Markin Keynes is like, yeah, but we kind of need consumers, So it's like we need to boost aggregate demand. So it's like, I don't know who I agree with more, but like I feel like Hayek I agree with more. Very complicated thesis. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little review of Don't Count on It. The reflections of investment illusions, capitalism, mutual funds, indexing, entrepreneurship, idealism, and heroes. And I haven't read Heroes, but I've read nearly everything in this book. And absolutely fantastic. Would highly recommend it. This is his his biggest book he's ever wrote. And if you just want to get like 1 out of 3 of the trilogy, if you want to get like the overall thing, get this thing. But if you want him to criticize capitalism, you go get the Battle for the Soul of Capitalism. And I forgot what this book said, but it was like they structured the name differently for that book. He said something about like the Battle for the Soul, or the soul battle for I don't know, it was something weird, like the soul that needs to be conquered for capitalism, or he rearranged the name to make it better. But ultimately, he still agrees. Now that he disagrees with the original name of the book, it's still the name of the book. He's not going to change it, but he's gone now. But I thought it was very interesting how they called it something different in the book, because it was a very confusing title, but it was still very funny. I did a review on that book, by the way, a few weeks ago. But yes. Oh man, I'm so tired. Anyway, you are someone and I'm someone else. Signing out of this weird review thing I keep doing. These books. Get some John Bogle books. They will help you improve your skills, not skills, but your investment thesis tremendously. You are someone and I'm someone else. Signing out.